We will now take questions from the audience.
Good evening. Viren Kapadia, All Buildings Landlords Welfare Association. See, we were talking about seaward redevelopment where the ratio in that area is 43% residents and 57% commercial. So maybe actually in future the buildings will have both the commercial and residents together. Now here elevator evacuation in the case of catastrophe like earthquake or fire, you need to have two kind of elevators for the residents and the commercials. Maybe actually the commercial area is not segregated or it is not possible. Then what can be the solution? It is my question to Mr. Jim. Again, there are certain areas in seaward where the jewelry markets are located, where the real jewelries are stored. So maybe people, those who at the time of evacuation, they would like to carry their safes. Maybe actually the safe weighing 100 to 150 kgs. So what can be an easy solution for it? Because there are diamond industries also located in the same area. So I would like to have more detailed information about it.
I know there's a question in there someplace, but I'm sorry I didn't understand it properly. But one thing that happens in residential towers, we find that rather than in the U.S., we would always have parking shuttle elevators that would come up to the ground, and then people would have to go through a security check and then get on the main elevators to go up into the residential. And typically in Asia and probably India, most of the Middle East, people don't want to do that. They want the main residential tower elevators to go down in the parking garage, which creates some real problems fire-wise, because I think then you have to enclose each one of the elevator waiting lobbies down in the parking garage. Plus it requires more very expensive high-speed elevators to do that, where we prefer the shuttle solution. As far as the retail spaces, most people obviously would not use elevators to evacuate that, and they're fully sprinkled and probably go out the stairs. Did that answer your question? I'm not sure what the question. Sorry.
The question is, the elevators can be used for evacuating the safes. The safe where, the costly jewelries and the diamonds which are kept, and maybe actually the high rise cannot be more than 200 meters in that area. But the mix, it is not possible like what you are looking in Middle East and in Far East. These areas which are going to be developed, they are going to be jointly developed. I don't see where you can segregate the business areas and the residential areas. Maybe actually there is a separation. There is a possibility, but it is a very small area of 544 acres of land where, nearly about 2 lakh of people, they are living. So they are to be accommodated in the same area. They cannot be shifted some other areas.
I don't have an answer for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess the solution to that I would propose would come on the other side of not facilitating a way for occupants to evacuate with valuables, but provide a way to protect those valuables so those occupants can evacuate and feel confident that their valuables are still protected. Sprinklers can go a very long way if the systems are maintained correctly. So that comes into facilities management, and if these jewelers are looking at renting space, making sure that those procedures are set in place by the facilities management team. But also, investing in fire safes that not only secure their diamonds and jewelry, but also protect them from fire as well. So I would almost encourage that the mind change shifts as opposed to facilitating that within the building design. I guess I would have a question for the individuals who have remained in the crowd. How many people would feel comfortable using elevators as just discussed in the 2009 edition of the IBC, where you can leave your residential unit, go into the elevator, and press the button and wait for the elevator to come to their floor and then evacuate? Can we see a raise of hands of who's confident? It appears as though the fire protection and vertical transportation community has some work yet to do.
I have a question for you. As an international community, and obviously we are concerned about human lives, so how do we make this mandatory in countries which, the local regulations and for the evacuation or whatever codes we need to apply to the buildings, the elevators, or whatever utilities, as an international community, is there any platform which can help us to do that, to make it mandatory?
Internationally, there's certainly a lot of support to help plan review departments make it mandatory, but in working in countries throughout the Middle East, we have run into some delays in authorities going through a very large construction boom without having the proper regulations set in place prior to these buildings being designed. And when you do not have the proper documentation, it's very difficult to go back after the building is constructed to make sure that it's complying with anything other than the very initial reports, which then again, the design reports can change quite drastically from the actual as-built conditions. So I would definitely encourage that the local authorities set into motion the process of adopting a set standard and not having it be relied upon the individual authority, not the individual person within the authority of applying the standards. And I know both NFPA and the ICC, the International Code Council that publishes the International Building Code, are very willing to assist authorities develop and modify their existing published codes to make it fit for the climate and culture within different areas around the world.
My name is Anand Sivan from Atkins, Dubai. In fact, Aaron gave me a clue of how to frame my question when he was asking for raised hands. In fact, one of the things I am a bit uncomfortable about in trying to work on evacuation elevators for Atkins designs is the fact that the important thing is in the details. For instance, when you look at the volume of water, firefighting water, that comes from sprinklers and also from fire hoses, it's quite a lot. And you have covered water protection in elevators. But it means that the law...
what we're looking at minimizing risk. So if the raised door thresholds provides us with an added level of protection, then that's one solution. Other solutions have been to provide trench drains in front of elevator shaft openings. But keep in mind these requirements are fairly new. So yes, you're right. There are a lot of details that have yet to be worked out. But one thing I also want to leave you with is the super tall building projects that we have worked on, we do not consider fire as the worst case scenario. So when we are looking at a full building evacuation, 90% of the time, 99% of the time, we're not even considering water being discharged in the building. It'd be something of, Burj Khalifa in the middle of the desert on a hot summer day, and we get prolonged failure of primary power supply, and we can no longer accommodate the HVAC load within the residential units. And if we're looking at an onset of a couple of days, we cannot rely on on having occupants stay within that building. That'd be one example. Another example would be an earthquake or other natural disasters. So these are the things that we're considering, not necessarily just fire.